Perfect. Let's move to the next one. The topic for today, I thought if it is too much technical product capability, let's talk about something which is and on a day-to-day basis, each one of us are doing in every project. Like, how do you write a high-quality functional design document? So I thought to talk about this quickly. So first thing is so we call it as a functional design document, but let's put it as a like this is a design document which you need to develop. But why do you need the design document, right? So this design document helps your business perspective, like what your uh, customer needs, what your user needs. It defines the business processes for which you are designing. It describes the use case, the need of this particular design, and also explains the requirement, right? So it tells you how the solution should work. So that is what is the design document all about. But when do you create this, right? What is the need, right? So it is created generally in your design phase. So if you look at your implementation phase, so it starts with discovery or the initiate phase, which you can say, and then you do the design, and then you do the build, and then the test and the operate. So it is generally done in your design phase, and it is created for all the gaps you identified. So in the discovery, you did, let's say, requirement gathering, you identify 100 requirements, you perform the fit gap analysis for all the requirements which you gathered. And then let's say out of 100, you found there are 5 gaps which are not there in the system, and you need to do some customization or the development for that. So then you need to write a design document for each of those gaps. And as I said, like it explains about your business perspective, how things will work. And the key thing is very important for consultants to note is that whenever you are writing this, it needs to be signed off by the required business stakeholder, because they need to agree that, okay, what you are going to design, do they agree with that design or not? A lot of times we just create something customized, and then just after customization, we go to the users or the business, and then they say, no, this is not what we wanted, right? So it is very important that you have to get the sign off from the stakeholders. A well-written FDD includes all the essential system elements, like what would be input data, how the workflows will work, how the output will look like. So all these are your key essential elements which you have for a design document. So when we are talking about these things, there are certain key attributes. When a lot of people ask me messaging that, hey, we need to write a design document. What should I include in the design document? So there is not a very thumb rule for this thing. Every organization might have their own formats, templates to design, write design document, but there are certain key things which you need to cover as an attribute for your design document, and that's it. Like you need to define that what's your project scope, because if you are going to design something which is not in your project or which in your implementation, I think that is going to be a problem for you. If it is a functional thing, then you need to possibly put it like how the organization and the functional responsibilities are distributed. Uh, Description of the business process. So let's say you have a gap into your procure to pay process, then define that in which sub process or which business process is getting impacted because of that. Architecture solution design, that what is your architecture for entire solution design which is there, and then how it is impacting. Then whenever you are developing something, it has got the impact on multiple things, which means it has got the security impact. So is there any security impact you have? Any extra functionality you need? What's the impact on the reporting? Let's say you are adding a field on something, does it require on the report to be displayed or not? You need to identify, right? Integration, you added something on your journal screen, but or the sales order, purchase order screen, and let's say you have an integration to create those transactions. Does it have an integration impact? You need to identify that. Data migration, let's say you are doing this, adding a field on journal on the vendor master, you need to consider if you are migrating the initial data when during the cutover, how you will migrate that. Do you need to add this specific new customization or the field which you have developed into your data entity? So data migration considerations needs to be done. And then the most important thing is the test cases which needs to be written along with your design document, so that it is when you publish this, when you push it forward, you know that the whatever the design you have proposed for the gap, how that is going to be tested, what inputs and what are the different scenarios by which you will be testing this. So these are certain key attributes to keep in mind whenever you are writing the design document. And I have a one sample which I'll show you in some time. But sometimes we just say FDD for everything. But also, depending on the type of gap which you have in the system, you can categorize them further. So you can say anything which is related to the functionality within the ERP system, right? So let's say I need something which is just related to the behavior of the process. Let's say if I post something, I want something to happen at that point of time, which remains within the ERP, right? So I can say that's a functionality related and that's a functional design document. I can categorize that. But then there are, let's say, sometimes you have a reporting requirement where you want some reports to be changed, or something to needs to be changed. Like for example, purchase order formats you need to redefine, or customer invoice you need to redefine based on the customer requirement. So that might fall under the report design document. So you might call RDD for that, right? And then of course, when you have integration, you are building with any external system, the to and fro information exchange. At that point of time, you might design the integration design document, and that is called as IDD. And normally, a lot of organization might say FDD for everything, which is also right. But if you in your head, you should at least categorize into these categories, because whenever you are writing anything specific to integration, you need to add certain component additionally, which are not covered as part of functional design document. And same goes with the reporting. You need to at least consider certain additional attributes to be documented when you are writing these different categories. But what happens once you design the doc, once you create a design document as a functional consultant? So maybe a lot of technical folks are here. So then that design document goes to the technical team, and then they create a technical design document, which means, let's say you told, I want this field on this form and this should be displayed, and this should be the length and the name of this field, and this should be the impact in the report or the form or whatever it is. But then the technical team needs to identify, okay, which table I need to modify and how it will be developed, what changes they will be doing. So they will be creating the technical design document. So that is the next step into that. And then how in the project cycle it will work, the technical design document will be completed. Then they will do the development, and then it will be coming back to you for the testing. Once the development team or the technical consultant performs the unit testing, then you are going to do the testing. And that is where you have the test cases back in the design document. You can take that as a reference and start doing the testing and say that, hey, this is why it is, this particular test case is not working right now. Maybe you raise a bug and all those things, right? So that is very important. So design document, whenever you are writing, you need to consider that you are giving, you should explain in such a way that anyone who is developing that functionality can understand very easily, and you should try to cover as much as information possible. Like it is something like when you are going and asking the interior designer, like for your house, you try to explain that this color I want, this sort of paintings I want, or this is type of furniture I want, right? You try to explain everything. Similarly, in the ERP functionality also, you should try to explain everything through this design document. I have seen a lot of time just consultant write a design document just for sake of writing because there is a requirement to create a document. But trust me, as a consultant, if you don't know how to write a good design document, I think it is going to be a problem for you in the future itself in that project, because you won't have any proper reference back what has been developed and why it was developed in such a way. Okay. So that is one thing which you need to categorize. But why it is required? As I said, you will have efficient development. You will not go to and fro with the developer to ask questions why this is required, this is to be developed. Effective testing, because you know what is designed, what is expected now. And then stakeholder confidence, you will have less to and fro with your customer. You will build a confidence with them because you understood the requirement properly, you designed that as per their need, and you have got the sign off. Remember, that is one key thing which I spoke. And the requirement tracking for the future, right? So all these things are very key aspect for a efficient project execution also, and a quality solution delivery as well. So that is the reason you should always focus on better design document. Now, how do you approach, right? What should be your key thing like in your mind when you are doing? As I said, you should try to consider each and every aspect to cover in that which can have a potential impact, which means you should try to understand your business process impact and the cross business process also. So if you are building something on procure to pay, you should also think like, is it going to have any impact on my inventory process if I post something in the inventory, right? So you should try to understand the entire impact on your business process, how it is going to impact your entire solution design which you have for that customer. The security aspect, a lot of time I have seen people build a functionality, but when they deploy it, the user is not able to see that functionality at all. Why? Because they did not build the security roles, privileges, or duties required for that. And then the consultant says, functional consultant says that, oh, that was very like it was assumption, you should have done that. But that's not an assumption, right? You need to tell the developer that, hey, when you are doing this, you need to create a privilege or the duty for this, so that when I assign this to any user, I can assign or create to their role, in which it is required. The reporting, I have added on the form, but now I have added on the sales order form or the purchase order form, that field, because it was very critical. Now it is not printing on purchase order report or the sales or customer invoice. Oh, you didn't tell that, but did you ask that? Is the question, right? So that also we need to consider that if we are adding something, does it have any impact on our reporting and the data migration? As I said, if you have added on anything on the customer form, or the vendor form, how you are going to migrate that newly created field on that particular thing, and the integration impact. So that is what you should try to address each aspect of the design, which is what it is written. Do not leave anything open ended in the design. So don't put any loose ends there which can create a further impact on your entire solution. And keep solution design lean. Try to design as simple as possible, right? A lot of time I have seen that we try to design a very fancy solution and it becomes so complicated that when it is going to be used by the end user, they are not able to adopt that particular design or that functionality, because you have made so complicated, and what they wanted was a very simple, possibly a solution from their perspective. So that is another key thing, that when you are designing something, you need to keep the solution design lean. Now with that, I have a kind of a template or a sample which I had created, and now not sure how many of you follow me on YouTube or something, but whatever I'm explaining today, I have already posted a video about this. But still I get a lot of questions, so I thought let me talk about this specific topic. Now a lot of people ask, hey, do you have a FDD template or something which I can use? But one thing to think about, if even if I give you the FDD template, is that what your organization is following? You need to ask yourself. And that is where I say a lot of time we write a design document just for the sake of designing, that there is a requirement, I have to do that, right? But then we completely deviate from that. But I think you should try to align with your organization, your partner, your customer, that what format you are going to follow. If there are two consultants, it should not happen that one consultant is writing in a one format or one attribute capturing, but another one is doing by its own format. But just to give you the idea how it looks, structure, and I do not say that like it is the format you should use and copy paste. It just create it as a sample. So you should have, let's say, the project. You can have if you are using DevOps, you can have a DevOps reference, because any design you will be creating, it will be against the requirement, right? Which you have captured, you have marked as a gap there. And then you should also maintain a history of that document, because initially you might have created something, you went back to your stakeholder, they made certain changes. So you can have a change tracking as well. The sign off section should be there. The referencing should be there. And if you are using any abbreviations, that should be there. And then the table of content should be there. And I'll quickly go through this table of content, which I have put here. And again, I'm repeating it, just an example from my perspective. You might come up with certain things which are applicable for your way of designing, and possibly you might add or remove from this. So, but typically you should always have purpose, objective, and scope of that document, right? Why are you creating? What is your key objective for writing this design document? And what is the scope of this document, right? So you should try to be as much as articulative about this thing as much as possible, okay? Then you should talk about which business process we are talking in this design document and what exactly is the gap. So I can say I'm talking about procure to pay process. In that, I'm talking about purchase order creation process. The purchase order gets created by this department. This goes to the approval flow, and then it is sent to the supplier. I can say that it's a high level business process. But when I'm doing that business process, customer or user do so and so thing, which is not available in Dynamics 365. Hence, there is a gap in the system, and we are writing the design document for that, right? So you need to explain that gap. What is that gap you are talking about in that description? Then what is your proposed solution from the business process perspective? Then you can say, hey, yes, we are going to add a new field which will be added here, which will help them to analyze or capture this information, which will flow to this place, and this will solve the gap which we have identified. Then you should try to put a bit to be business process flow, that how the process flow looks like. You should use the Visio or any other tool. In the last month session, I talked about you should know how to use how to create the business flow diagram, right? Process flow diagram using the Visio. And then if you have any example to illustrate, you should do that, because this is, just imagine if you provide all this information, it is going to help a developer a lot to understand what you are talking, right? If there are any prerequisites or constraint you have about that, you should write. Assumptions you should write. So let's say if you are saying that this field will be coming from an integration, so then you can say that the source system should have this information and should provide as part of this integration, which is this integration design document, and give a reference to that. Impacted areas in the application. So let's say what are the different areas which are getting impacted. So maybe you are adding something in the order process, but your invoicing process is getting impacted, right? You are using some, let's say, ISV solution that is getting impacted. So is there any impact on the any other area or any other application? Do you need to do any configuration change just to manage this design, right? So yeah, I have to enable this specific parameter. to make this design work, right? I will use that as a configuration change. I need to define that. Do you have non-functional requirement? For example, any performance you need to capture, like someone says that, okay, this should work in this duration and it should be captured, or it should be immediately flowing from this place to that place. Real-time value should be captured, and so on. So any non-functional requirement you have captured. So that's your section one, where we are, if you talk about, this is kind of an introduction of your entire gap which you have possibly identified, and then you are trying to give the overview of design and how you will fulfill and how this entire solution will look like. Now then you also need to provide the detailed design aspect of this. So then you say overall overview of the proposed design, that okay, I want to create a new field on this specific form. So you can give the screenshot, mimic that this field will be this will be the name, this will be the type, this will be mandatory field, this is where it will appear, right? And so on, right? And then if there are data requirement, as I said, if you have identified any user interface changes, which form, navigation, which module, you want to create certain parameters, define in the parameters, what are the user interface changes are going to be there. And then you should have a business logic. Then business logic means I should, let's say if I capture that field, once save, it should be logged, or if it is in workflow, let's say when I create a purchase order, when it is in workflow, rest of the fields get logged. No one can change. But you develop the field, let's say, and if you don't define this logic to your developer, and maybe this is the only field which is editable even with when the workflow is in review. That's a loophole in your design, isn't it? So you need to write all the business logic, or maybe let's say you say that once I post the invoice, this should flow into your vendor transaction form also, only on the posting, or it should go to my some other place, right? So all that business logic, how it should work, right? You need to define here. You can have a pointers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever it is, right? Then sometimes, let's say I just try to add a one section for integration related. Now, let's say you are doing the integration with the external application. That application is sending some information to Dynamics 365. For example, you are creating the financial journal. Now you need to provide the mapping. Like if you want to create a journal name, then if you want to create a journal entry and capture that journal data, how it will work, because the source system might be calling certain fields in a different way. So you can define some table like what is the source field. It can be, let's say you can say it is called as account, right? And then you can say what is the type of that. It is a, let's say, number or text, whatever. What is the source destination? I will take that as a main account field here. And what is the type? What is the business logic? Do I need to capture something when I'm do I need to write some logic there to when I'm capturing that specific field? Is it a mandatory field for my integration, right? And if there is any remark, now you might have more fields here, but just trying to explain that when you are writing an integration design document, you have to try and you should try to explain all these things here, right? And then you talk about the security, that okay, whenever you design this functionality, please try to add this privilege or duty, so that which whosoever is the user going to use, we can add to their roles which they are having. Is there any impact on workflows, reporting, data, entities, error handling? If you have to do something, as I said, it should be mandatory field. It should not allow to submit in the workflow if it is not filled, right? Or it should be non-editable after a certain point of time. So anything which you think is a error handling perspective, it is required. And then the functional testing, you can write what are the test case, what is the test case description, and what is the expected outcome for testing that design which you have built, right? So all these things are very important for you to document in this design document. So if you have a small gap, let's say in your opinion, but these are the different things which you possibly want to capture. And just imagine if you write all these things and document everything, and when you provide to any technical consultant, or you provide to the stakeholder, there will be a more efficient way of delivering. The functionality will be solid. It will cover all the aspect and there will be less to and fro there, and you will have a better solution or the quality solution delivered to your customer. So that is what I wanted to talk about in this segment.